Hello and welcome. My name is Brian Saunders, and I'm a graduate student in computer science at Georgia Tech. Today I'm going to walk you through the paper titled Automated Analysis of Secure Internet of Things Protocols, published at ACSAC 2017. This presentation is provided to meet the paper presentation requirement for Georgia Tech's Introduction to Cyber-Physical Systems Security, or CS 6263. Before we get started, please note that I am not the author of this paper, nor do I claim any credit for their work. The authors are as listed: Junyoung Kim and Wenhu Sanjay of the University of New South Wales and Ralph Holz of the University of Sydney. The paper I am presenting today was published in the ACSAC 2017 Proceedings of the 33rd Annual Computer Security Applications Conference and can be found on pages 238 through 249 of that paper. The authors presented at ACSAC 2017, which was held in Orlando, Florida on December 4th through 8th in 2017. If you would like to read this paper for yourself, please see the links on screen. The author Ralph Holz is currently hosting the paper on his website for personal or classroom use, and it should be noted that the authors do not wish the paper to be distributed for profit or commercial use without express written consent. Additionally, the paper may be purchased directly from ACM for $15 at the second link listed below. Now, before we dive right into the paper, you might be asking yourself, what is the Internet of Things, or sometimes referred to as IoT devices for short? The Oxford Online Dictionary describes the Internet of Things as the interconnection via the Internet of computing devices embedded in everyday objects, enabling them to send and receive data. According to the IoT agenda, IoT devices are commonly categorized into three main groups: consumer, enterprise, and industrial. Consumer-connected devices include smart TVs, toys, and wearables. Enterprise and industrial IoT devices span traffic and weather condition monitors and large-scale air conditioning and lighting. As the Internet continues to grow, the number of devices that will be connected to the Internet will rise as well. It is essential to understand that security of these devices must become a priority, and in fact, a telling quote from the Oxford Online Dictionary states, "If one thing can prevent the Internet of Things from transforming the way we live and work, it will be a breakdown in security." In order to understand the purpose and value of this paper, it is important to recognize the significant challenges to formally testing the way that IoT devices communicate, or more appropriately, their protocol. IoT devices are often in places where energy use and network bandwidth are at an extreme premium, meaning that the overhead of security has often been overlooked in the past. That said, the difficulty in automating security testing of these protocols also stem from the fact that IoT protocols are subject to frequent change. Additionally, the security requirements may vary widely across implementation of the protocol. The authors further reinforced the quote from the Oxford Online Dictionary by stating that the security of IoT systems remains one of the top barriers blocking the success of IoT proliferation. Prior to this paper, the methods available for security analysis included pen and paper and some limited automated testing. These methods were rather limited in that pen and paper analysis is subject to human error and can be a huge time requirement. Secondly, the available automated testing works well for established IoT protocols that follow a published standard, but don't apply logic generally such that newer protocols can also be tested. Previously, automated testing was not necessarily available outside of industry, which had likely stunted its growth. Finally, the available testing methods did not consider one of the largest security concerns for IoT devices, which is known as a denial of service or DOS attack. Due to the constrained nature of IoT devices and their often unguarded deployment environment, IoT systems are particularly vulnerable to DOS attacks. The paper narrows its focus to 5 Internet of Things protocols and 3 adversary models. The authors provide an implementation in the form of publicly available code, which can be downloaded from the GitHub link provided. This symbolic analysis focuses on prominent IoT protocols under the adversary models of Dolev-Yao, referenced throughout this presentation as D-Y, Extended Kinetic Cross-Check, ECK, and Perfect Forward Security, or PFS. The D-Y model is widely considered by these protocols as a traditional attacker by means of an insecure wireless channel. A significantly stronger adversary is represented by the ECK model, where the adversary may dynamically compromise a limited number of long-term and session keys with the possibility of corrupting random number generators. A PFS model represents those applications which require the protection of past sessions against future compromisers of secret keys. By modeling the Sigfox, LoRa, MQTT, CoAP, and JPake models, the authors also study the challenges in existing symbolic security analysis tools, as well as highlight the vulnerability of all 5 protocols to DOS attacks. The paper concludes with an examination of the limitation of current DOS mediation techniques as they apply to the Internet of Things, and propose a solution to DOS attacks that can be applied generally to existing and new IoT protocols as they are developed. As we delve into more rigorous study of the modeled protocols, remember the context provided during our discussion of what IoT devices are. The way that the devices communicate in different environments is referred to as a protocol. For all intents and purposes, the protocol of an IoT device can be thought of as the language that it speaks on a network. In an environment where a network spans a number of kilometers, such as streetlights or water and gas meters, a low-power, wide-area network, or LPWAN, can provide coverage to devices. The LPWAN uses an unlicensed radio spectrum, which is free for public use. 2 of the modeled protocols are used in LPWAN environments. The Sigfox protocol is designed for enterprise cases with no energy constraints, but higher security requirements. Each device is equipped with manufacturer-generated public and private key pairs, and these are used as the identity during their lifetime. Sigfox communication packets carry the sender's signature to enhance integrity in low-bandwidth environments. Conversely, the Long-Range Alliance, or LoRa specification, is more suited for constrained IoT applications with long-term usage. It uses pre-shared key, or PSK, cipher suites with support only of a hash-based message authentication code, or HMAC. This is an important note since a pre-shared key is only secure against a D-Y adversary, and a single compromised device can jeopardize the entire application security. The next 2 protocols use RESTful interfaces and lightweight publish-subscribe messaging protocols designed for constrained devices and low bandwidth, high latency, or unreliable networks. The Constrained Application Protocol, or CoAP, uses datagram TLS, while MQ Telemetry Transport, MQTT, uses a session resumption approach. In both cases, these protocols are used in IoT applications where bandwidth and battery power are at a premium. The publish-subscribe protocols use a server and subscriber model, where the server receives a published item and securely distributes it to all subscribers. Finally, perhaps the most secure of the protocols examined is called JPake. Password-authenticated key exchange, or PAKE, schemes allow for the establishment of a secure communication between devices solely based on a shared low-entropy password. PAKE adoption has been blocked by patent issues, which led to a patent-free version using a juggling technique, hence JPake. An important difference between JPake and the other protocols modeled in this study is that it has not yet been standardized. It is used throughout as an examination of a new IoT protocol. In order to understand the necessity for the contributed denial-of-service attack countermeasure, it is important to understand the existing countermeasures. The authors focus on 4 existing countermeasures as they apply for the Internet of Things and their shortcomings. One-way hash functions have been used in wireless sensor networks as a DOS attack defense measure. Devices must be equipped with non-invertible hash functions from the manufacturer, which is a major concern for IoT due to the sheer volume of unique functions that would have to be deployed from the factory. A successful attack against a single node could reveal the one-way function, thereby neutralizing this defense entirely. The second countermeasure is a cookie, which is issued by the server upon initial client hello message. While this is a good defense mechanism against spoofed IP addresses, it does nothing to counteract traffic from a DOS attack mounted from a valid IP. Thirdly, a time lock puzzle was proposed by Revest, Shamir, and Wagner. While a great security method, the algorithm requires 1 square exponentiation and 1 multiplication to create the puzzle, which are computationally intensive operations. As one might expect, constrained devices in the Internet of Things might struggle with such a technique. Finally, a client puzzle is a cryptographic countermeasure against connection depletion, such as a DOS attack that uses TCP SYN flooding. Existing client puzzle algorithms are much more lightweight than the time lock puzzle counterpart, but still have an overhead for hardness control communications. The countermeasure for denial of service attacks proposed in this paper expands on and suggests a new algorithm for a client puzzle that applies better in an Internet of Things. To model standard-based protocols, a number of verification tools were considered, but ultimately the authors chose to use the Tamarin prover due to its proven value in the development of TLS 1.3. Tamarin guarantees the termination of analysis of complex protocols and supports Diffie-Hellman inverses and exponentiation, which in combination are used in higher security protocols such as JPake. Some important assumptions made by the Tamarin prover are provided as predefined cryptographic primitives under a perfect cryptography model. This model implies that symmetric cryptography never reveals plain text, hashing acts as a random oracle, and MACs and signatures are unforgeable. The authors used Tamarin to model Sigfox as a representation of a typical public key cryptography scenario. In this example, the Sigfox server pushes an asymmetric encrypted notification with its signature to devices. Focus your attention now on the graphic on the right-hand side of your screen. While it may look complicated at first, let's tackle it one piece at a time. The developed model uses a combination of 4 rules to implement the protocol. The first mechanism, denoted as register_pk, represents the traditional D-Y adversary model in that it signifies the public key is transmitted to the untrusted network. The second rule represents a transition of states for the security proof stage. The receive rule models a device's role in which an asymmetrically encrypted message is received with a signature, and then it verifies and decrypts the message. An important takeaway for the receive rule is that it will proceed provided the signature verification equals true. Finally, the reveal_LTK rule represents a stronger adversary model such as ECK or PFS, where the adversary has access to long-term private keys. In Tamarin, security properties are defined as lemmas, and for the purposes of Sigfox, the authors defined the actual lemmas representing that 1. The adversary does not know the secret message as claimed by the server, 2. The adversary does not know the secret message as claimed by the end device, and 3. All messages labeled as secret before a compromise still remain secret. We will discuss the author's findings of all model protocols in a few slides. This slide is going to look rather similar to the previous model, with some slight differences. Now let's talk about how the authors modeled the LoRa Alliance pre-shared key with security properties. For simplicity's sake, let's consider for this scenario 2 parties, Alice, represented as A, and Bob, represented by B. Under the LoRa model, Alice and Bob exchange their own secret and use a hash function for integrity. The rules key_distribution and reveal_PSK model pre-shared key distribution and revealing respectively. In the A_send rule, Alice retrieves a shared key and transfers a message with a hashing algorithm to the network. In roll_B, Bob receives the message and then retrieves the shared key. Bob then performs hash verification using its own key, and then generates a secret, and then encrypts and sends a message with hashing onto the network, as shown by the out function in line 5. In order to distinguish his message from Alice, Bob inserted a unique identifier on line 2. Finally, in A_receive, Alice receives Bob's message and then verifies the hash. Similar to the lemmas we studied before, created for the Sigfox model, the lemmas model adversary models D_Y and ECK respectively. As we discussed before, one of the largest challenges for automating security analysis is the introduction of new algorithms. The analysis of new algorithms and protocols such as JPake is necessary since they are already in use publicly. In the JPake model, 2 parties establish a private and authenticated communication solely based on their shared low-entropy password without requiring public key or cryptography infrastructure. The issue of modeling JPake and similar algorithms stems from the fact that they are infinitely many unifiers for Diffie-Hellman groups, which is a general open problem and research topic in all symbolic verification tools. Proper modeling of the JPake protocol requires multiplication and addition of Diffie-Hellman groups, which means there is no known efficient algorithm to support the required features. The authors suggest a practical approach to imitate the required functionality, but recognize that it is not a theoretical contribution to the open research problem. The 2 solutions proposed are approximation and built-in primitive. In order to approximate the juggling technique of exponentiation over the parameters, They propose the use of concatenation, which uses the discrete logarithm problem and decision square Diffie-Hellman. Secondly, the authors suggest including JPEG as a built-in primitive under perfect cryptography, such as Tamarin does with public key cryptography, which allows JPEG to be used as a predefined persistent fact inside of security analysis. The results shown here represent a report card of sorts for the different IoT protocols. As a reminder, D-Y is a representation of a traditional insecure wireless channel attacker. ECK represents a stronger adversary with dynamic compromise, and PFS is perfect forward security, which protects past sessions against future compromise of secret keys. An interesting note for all 5 protocols is that authentication, key establishment, and message secrecy were proven secure under the D-Y model. Starting at the top and working down, we can see that JPEG was proven secure under all 3 models. The CoAP protocol with a pre-shared key compromised message secrecy under the ECK model, and in public key cryptography, compromised key establishment under perfect forward security. MQTT was proven secure under the ECK model, Sigfox compromised key establishment under perfect forward security, and LoRa compromised message secrecy under the ECK model. The Internet of Things faces emerging threats on a daily basis. The authors use denial-of-service attacks as an example of emerging attack models to IoT devices. A denial-of-service attack requires very little effort compared to other cryptographic attacks, and is extremely effective in the Internet of Things. It is assumed that emerging threats aim to disrupt, subvert, or destroy a network, thereby diminishing or eliminating capability. Denial-of-service attacks are extremely effective in terms of depleting or exhausting constrained resources that make up IoT devices. In order to show the impact of denial-of-service attacks, the authors used a constrained IoT device called OpenMote. OpenMote is a battery-running device that even lightweight algorithms such as the elliptic curve digital signature algorithm require 2.6 and 4.1 seconds for verification and generation respectively. By simply flooding the network with fake signatures or session reinitialization requests, a denial of service can be caused on this device. With respect to JPEG, denial-of-service attacks are powerfully effective. The original JPEG implementation itself is too heavy for IoT devices, and as such, an elliptic curve variant was proposed. EC-JPEG requires significantly shorter keys than RSA for the same level of security, which has massive impacts on performance and memory requirements. That said, a single EC-JPEG handshake on the OpenMote IoT device required 11.8 seconds for computation, and 20.5 seconds with communication included. That handshake alone consumed 0.14% of a fresh battery, meaning that false authentication requests could easily deplete the device's battery. Before, we discussed the limitations of existing denial-of-service countermeasures, and recalled that the authors proposed an alternative to a client puzzle. The proposed countermeasure uses an AES brute force-based server puzzle that dynamically adjusts the hardness in case of consecutive denial-of-service attack attempts or advanced adversaries. The server puzzle is sent to the adversary upon detection of a denial of service, and it is required to solve a k-bit I-round AES brute force problem. To verify the answer, the device only needs to perform a single hash operation. This method is beneficial to IoT devices in 4 ways. Firstly, since the algorithm uses standard AES and hashing, it does not depend on other parameters. Secondly, the I-round AES symmetric operations are lightweight, even on extremely constrained devices. Thirdly, even though there are I-ephemeral AES keys, the device only needs to store one at a time to solve the puzzle. Finally, the hardness is dynamic, in that the device can control expected time by adding I-rounds, or adjust the length of the AES key. In conclusion, we discussed the automated analysis of existing and emerging IoT protocols using the Tamarin prover while examining solutions to the critical challenges of formal security analysis as it applies to the Internet of Things. We also discussed a limitation of current models for emerging threats, such as denial-of-service attacks. Since the majority, if not all, IoT protocols are vulnerable to cryptographic denial-of-service attacks, a solution for IoT devices was proposed. This denial-of-service countermeasure can be applied generally across IoT protocols and requires lower computation, lower communication complexity, and hardness control to prevent persistent attack. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this presentation, and I really look forward to continuing this discussion about the analysis of Internet of Things protocols online. See you there.